Thank you, Katrina, so much. I love when you're here. You bring so much artistry to your music. I requested that song by that heartthrob, Shawn Mendes. That dude is like never wearing sleeves. He's amazing. He kind of took the world by storm a few years back, and I love that song because he's being really kind of vulnerable in that song. He talks about hard times in his life, about anxiety, of participating in numbing behaviors that try to make that anxiety go away, and of just getting to the point sometimes where we feel like just giving up, but how he can't. And I love how that chorus goes, like, sometimes I feel like giving up, but I just can't. It isn't in my blood. Like, it's not in my blood. I can't give up. It's not in my blood. It just gives me chills every time I hear that. And when I hear those lyrics, it calls me to think about like my own blood, right? Like all of those who have come before me, whose DNA like literally is running through my veins. And like there's something within all of us and how we all carry this kind of resilience, this kind of wisdom, this kind of guidance, like in our physical bodies. Like we can wake up to the fact that this, especially when it's needed, especially when we feel like giving up, especially when it's feeling like too much, like there's something in us that won't let us, that won't let us give up, that will always just kind of find us when we feel like we're at the brink, that connects us with something that's kind of ancient of days, but lives in us, like right in the here and now. I so love that spiritual practice that Reverend Shannon brought us through last week. And she talks about how we all have this inner guidance system, that it literally lives in our physical bodies, that always has our best in mind, and that is, like, if we listen to it, always just inviting us into this deeper place of trust in our lives, always bringing us to this place where we can be really clear about decisions that we're making in our lives, and that is always communicating with us on small and very large things, no matter what. I love how she said it's like when we're considering a decision, if it's a yes, we experience expansion. I think I experience it as the sense of calm or the sense of relief sometimes. And when we experience a no, or perhaps sometimes it's just a not yet, it feels like, kind of a contraction or a tightness in our bodies. And this is real wisdom. And then when we have a practice of just checking in with our body temples, like we will always be guided. We will always be protected. We will always be led to the next right thing, whatever it is, whether that's a small thing or something really big and large in our lives. And it just like made me marvel, just like really just stand in awe of like, what is happening when we're taking part in this practice? Like, it feels like a super simple thing, just like checking in. Am I feeling expansive or am I feeling kind of constricted? And when we do this, like what's happening is we're literally like communing with that divine wisdom within us. It seems like kind of a natural thing because I know we all know how to do this, but it's miraculous. And it really is like living proof of what we like to talk about here at New Thought so much, that there is this divine presence that lives within us. Like we like to say that, that the universe, God, living spirit, it's not something that's just out there, right? It actually lives within each one of us. And this practice just had me really like stand in awe of like the fact that that's real. And we don't have to, search anywhere but outside of ourselves to discover that as a real truth in our lives. And that serves as a deep comfort to me, because I know sometimes I find it difficult to connect with these vast things or these, the things that they talk about in religious texts and in history, especially in this like oh so modern world. Like, I have to admit, like history and social studies were not my favorite subjects growing up. I hated them. I found them to be incredibly boring and like so far away from my current reality. And in some ways I'm still like this. Like I have done my best to get into historical drama shows like Downton Abbey and Call the Midwife and even Bridgerton. which my wife totally loves. And I find myself like I'm just like unable to get into it. You know, I'm much more like the reality TV kind of guy in sports and, you know, competition cooking shows where there's a clear winner at the end of that gives me lots of satisfaction. But it's interesting because I was a religious studies major, and religion isn't necessarily like a very modern thing. But I wrote a poem actually about this kind of, conflict I have and this yearning to connect with things of the past, but finding it really hard to do so in this modern life. My wife and I wrote this poem for an event that was sponsored by the UN at the Albuquerque Peace and Justice Center a few years back. So is it okay if I share that with you guys? Not that you have a choice. There's only one person with the microphone here. But yeah, I want to share it with you all because it feels really relevant to what we're talking about today. So this poem is called Religion is Dead, but Alive in Me. So I've got to make a confession. I often find it hard to relate with the religious figures of the past. The monastic flow so painfully slow in this world of click this, share that, Holy Spirit, that dove now, that pigeon, over there, tweet this, God got a hashtag now. It feels like I've never had the time to just sit under a tree like Siddhartha, contemplating the existence of life, suffering, eternity. And when, like the Israelites, will I ever roam the desert for 40 years after Moses parts the Red Sea made of my people's blood and tears? How could I possibly speak to an angel in a cave like Muhammad, peace be upon him? I know nothing of being pursued as an infant like Jesus, whose parents were forced to flee from the Herodian king. When I was born, my family took me home to a cul-de-sac in Lakewood, Colorado. Because this Jesus on the cross, bottom top of the rosary, and Buddha and Hanuman, and that one God with an elephant dome piece, sitting now in white folks' bedrooms all around, and Allah, a coded word more than a name on Western tongues, Sister Ruth, the narrative of her story mostly unsung. The story of these great teachers who breathed prayers alive for many a century feel too far away to have any relevance to me. All this to say, religion is surely dead. Until I remember my own life's blood, the history of my family, who roamed from Japan at the turn of the last century to the left coast with dreams of better life lived, who in Hawaii broke their backs in fields of sugarcane and learned to speak pidgin with others who had came for that same dream. I remember my legacy as an immigrant, a refugee. I feel now the urgency of Moses coursing through my blood, political refugee in search of Eden. And on my palms, there is a map on how we search for freedom. The Jews turning from the pyramids they built over generations, who left it all in one night, taken in by the desert, and the search for a new home reminds me of my grandfather, who in one night left the life that he had built because a president signed an executive order 9066, all persons of Japanese ancestry must go or be interned in camps, guns pointed inward, barbed wire fences, the immigrant detention centers of 1942. Feeling this, I breathe into the vows of the Buddhist who takes refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, as my grandfather who took refuge in the only state that welcomed Japanese Americans during the war. This is why my family is there, why I grew up in a landlocked state, far from the large Japanese American communities on our nation's coast. This is why I love Colorado, why I take such pride in where I'm from. It was sanctuary. Like the sanctuary that Medina became for Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the first Muslims who were expelled from their home, their holy land of Mecca, because they were considered a threat. The story of God, as seen through these prophets at a glance, far from our modern life, is the story of the refugee, the immigrant, the journey of hope and strife, which is the story of us all. The restoration of dignity, the seeking of safety. We know how to do this togetherness. We've been taking refuge in each other forever, so we continue this legacy and let the ancient ones of the past come back alive in the present through us. The story of peace is encoded in our DNA. Refuge is written on our bones. Thanks. Thanks. A shout out to my wife, Rebecca, for writing that with me. It was really an amazing experience to create art with her. There's something within us that won't give up. There's something written in our DNA that is ancient of days. There's a reason why we are drawn to stories and mythologies and ancient traditions like the ones that we talk about so much in this church. It's because those still live on within us. There's something that seeks to make its way out into the world every single time we face a challenge, whether that's personally or collectively. There's some sort of wisdom that is always guiding the way for us, always allowing us to know what path to take, what action to take part in, how we meet the challenges of our present time. We are imbued with this wisdom. Our spiritual life reminds us of that. It reminds us of the ways in which we've always been connected to something greater than ourselves, that we are part of a large story of evolution, and that we each have a role to play here at this time, at this crazy time that we are living in right now. We're being called to access that same wisdom that the sages and saints of the past accessed, that led them through the challenges of the times that they were living through. That same energy, that same divine, ineffable presence that has been tried and discovered over and over again to be described, but more so to be lived. In our modern times, it's sometimes easy to forget that same wisdom lives in us. But it does. And that's the reminder, that's the living proof that we all have the same living spirit within us. And so all we can do is look within ourselves and often look to each other to find this living proof, especially when we're having a hard time finding it in ourselves, because sometimes it can feel difficult to find that within ourselves. And so that's what I love about spiritual community, right? Spiritual community allows us to see the ways this is present in every single person around us, and that they are living proof of this divine presence within them, and how that divine presence and the discovery of that has allowed their lives to expand, to grow, to change, to heal, to evolve in ways that we perhaps didn't even think was possible, right? We don't need anything else than literally just the people around us, the people we share community with, to have and to build a deep faith. We don't need to have blind faith ever. Our tradition says, no, please don't have blind faith, actually. That's very dangerous. Look to each other. Look within yourself for the living proof of the way in which this universe works, and do so in a way that can do good in the world, that can help make the world the kind of world that we want to see, the kind of world we want to leave behind, the kind of world we know is possible, right? You can draw upon each other's strength in that sense. Writer Clarissa Pinkola Estes, she wrote about this phenomenon, especially when you're going through challenging times. Here's what she says. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help to calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you can do. I love this call. I love this call to be unapologetic in our faith, being willing to be lit from within, being unapologetic in the ways that we really live out this thing called life, and the ways that our deep belief in oneness, our deep belief in the good, our deep belief in love has made an impact in our lives, and we live from that place. But we also recognize that if we are unable to see that, all we have to do is look to each other. And then in spiritual community, that's what we get to do together. That's why I encourage us to get into a class. If you've been sitting at home, come back, y'all. Come back. Wear a mask and come back. I think we're having to relearn this a little bit, because there's only so much we can do on our own. One of my teachers, Dr. Raz Smith, who is in the recovery community, he talks about it. Addiction, he says, addiction happens in isolation. Recovery happens in community. And so, I know we're relearning how to do this, y'all. But I want to invite you to come back to a class, sign up for spiritual economics that's coming up. Because what it allows you to do is, allows you to see the evidence, the living proof of all the other people in the class who are living these lives right alongside you, but it also invites you to access that same inner wisdom within. So I reached out to some folks in our community to ask them what they are living proof of, just to share some of these kind of testimonials of living proof. And so I want to share some of these with you today. And I want to start with Reverend Noel. Reverend Noel, if all you have to do is take a class, and you'll meet Reverend Noel, because Reverend Noel signs up for every single class. He's a minister emeritus here. He is just seeping with wisdom. He's a delight. But he told this story this past Sunday during our men's group, and I want to share it with you about what he's the living proof of. These are his words. I'm just kind of summarizing them here, or ad-libbing them here. I was typing away when he was sharing. He says, I am living proof of the principle of mental equivalency. That is, I don't have a mental equivalency of dis-ease. I've been diagnosed with 6 horrendous diseases. I've survived 2 potentially fatal auto accidents and a potentially fatal drowning, none of which upset me very much. I love Reverend Noel so much. I don't even doubt the diagnosis, but I have a bigger prognosis. I had polio at age 12, all 3 forms in brain, throat, and lungs. And my parents were told I couldn't possibly survive. Fortunately, I wasn't told that. All I remember was I was so sick, I just wanted to sleep. During the middle of my coma, I popped out of my body and could see they removed the young farmer from the bed next to mine, who had come in cheerful and denied anything was wrong with him, and a few days later had died. One of the nurses leaned over towards me and said, "He's next." And in that moment, this cosmic force came over me. I popped back into my body and I said, "No!" I woke up, pulled the tubes out of me, and said I needed to pee. They were shocked, and I went back to bed, but I survived. This became my mental equivalent. I don't have a mental equivalent of disease. The whole principle of mental equivalency I have proven by my own experience. Most recently, I went into total remission of prostate cancer. When I was told I went into radiation would make me tired, I said, with all this energy coming into my body, there's no way I could be tired. I began to refer to the radiation machine as the Red Bull machine because it actually energized me. And it did, and the doctors were shocked. So that's just one story, and I want to share with you some other short, more evidence of the living proof from our community. I tried to include everyone that got back to me, and if I didn't include you, please forgive me if I missed you. So second-year practitioner Terry Christopher tells us, I am living proof that humans and the earth are inextricably connected. I've been told that even as a baby, I was attracted to dirt and it to me. Now, as an intensive gardener, I educate and share about the living systems of soil of which we all depend. Terry is living proof of our inherent and deep connection to the natural world. She's an incredible gardener and also a beekeeper. She actually gifted us some of her amazing honey as a going-away present. I was so excited. She exudes this connection to the natural world. And everything she does, when I'm around Terry, I feel this connection within myself. Like, I feel my connection to the earth. She has a very grounded energy, y'all, and I feel my oneness with it. Terry is living proof of that truth of our oneness with the planet. Kevin Buckingham Hayes, our board president, says, I am living proof of the willingness to change. Through 12-step work, I have learned how to change, how to stretch, how to grow. When you meet Kevin, all you feel is like joy and enthusiasm. But you can tell it comes from a deep and genuine place. This guy has led our community through so much change over these past few years as board president. But because he has been a part of his own change and been willing to be a part of that own change and growth and stretching in his personal life, he was able to lead our community so gracefully and joyfully as board president through all of the changes that have been happening in our church and in the world as well. Kevin is living proof that leaning into change can benefit you and so many others in the process. Bonnie Duncan shares with us, I am living proof that listening as a child to my God dreams empowered my reality into my adulthood, and my true purpose in this lifetime was found. I love this so much. When I'm around Bonnie, I feel this sense of like contentment, just this pure contentment within her. It feels like you are really around someone that has, found their purpose in life and has lived it. And yet she has this youthful exuberance about her. She is still exploring and playing and bringing that kind of exploration of life to others. She is living proof of how following your dreams can bring true contentment and fulfillment in life. Bernalee Garland, who is a practitioner and a spiritual growth leader here, says, I am living proof that with continual dedication to the forgiveness process, the past no longer needs to inform the present. This is so powerful, right? Like, I think we all know how difficult forgiveness is. Often so much so that I know myself and many others just kind of give up on it. It's so hard. Yet when I hear these words, when I see this as living proof, and when I meet Bernalee, when I feel her grace and her power, her forthrightness and her sense of who she is in the world, I feel no apology from her when I am around her. She is who she is. And I realize and sense that a lot of that strength has come because she has done this forgiveness work. She hasn't allowed other people to dictate her world because she has done this deep work. It's powerful. It's beautiful. It's how I want to be. She is living proof of the power of forgiveness work and what that gives you as a human being. Barb Jennings-Garant, who is on the board at our center, says, I am living proof of having resilience and being part of the solution. I see the best in everything and everyone. Wow, I feel like this is deep wisdom for our times. There is so much going on that can make the world kind of feel like it's going down the toilet and taking all of us with it. Yet this wisdom from Barb, she simply says that when we have resilience, when we draw upon that, we can then become a part of the solution. When we draw upon our resilience, we can become a part of the solution. And then from there, we can actually see the best in everyone and everything. This is deep medicine. It's no surprise that Barb was a nurse for her entire career and just recently retired. Like so many of our healthcare workers, she has this sense of resilience about her that is able to meet the current situation she is in and then come up with a solution rather than dwelling in the problem. And she always does so with this servant heart. It reminds me of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote, we must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope. Barb, thank you for being living proof of that statement for all of us. And Helen Ohm, who helps lead our practitioners here at NCCSL, she simply says, I am living proof, and so are you, that the divine creative source is. She's a bit of a mystic, this one. Because we are, God is. Because God is, we are. When you meet Helen, when you have a one-on-one session with her, when you just bask in her presence, you can feel this at a cellular level. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's who she is. It's how she holds space in life because you are, God is. Because God is, you are. You are the very living proof of the divine. Thank you, Helen, for that. And the last one I'd like to share with you all is from my mentor, your senior minister, our beloved Reverend Shannon. She says, I'm living proof that listening to the indwelling Spirit and following its wise direction leads us on a magical, twisty, turny, growing, and glorious path to a greater experience of who we are and why we have come here. This is who Reverend Shannon is, you all. She really is someone that is in constant communion with the indwelling Spirit. You can actually see it happening in real time. Like she listens, she checks in, she surrenders to that wisdom, and then she allows that to become a part of her body and her mind, and then she allows herself to take action from that place. It is crazy and amazing and awe-inspiring to watch and be a part of. And if you spend enough time with her, she will inspire you to do the same. She will inspire you to trust that inner guidance and inner wisdom within you. She will be a living proof of all of the different ways in which that can exist. And she will encourage you to be someone who trusts yourself, who knows yourself, who relies upon yourself to always have the guidance for whatever you need, whatever you're going through in life. And that every time you do that, every time you trust, it will lead you and guide you on this amazing adventure that will bring you deep fulfillment, that will help feel like your life is purposeful, that it's meaningful, and it's also bringing life to others. That's what she has done for me, you all. And why I have so much love and respect for her and gratitude for being able to serve with her. And why I know that though I'm moving on and then moving back to Colorado, and that inner guidance has brought me there, that I also know and trust that it's for the greater good, because one person's good is always for the greater good of all. That's how you know it's a genuine place, is when your good only expands the good of everyone else. So I know and trust that that's present here too. And even though this decision impacted her the most, she's going to have to do a lot more now that I'm going back to Colorado, she trusts it. And she supported me in that. And I am so grateful for that, and so grateful that this community is here to help wrap around her as well. That you all are in community together. You all are living proof of the divine. You all are walking hand in hand, side by side down this path of life, and you all get to be guides and spirits for each other. And so I'm grateful for that. And I know that my path alongside you also continues, that this connection that we have made, all of these little examples, which are just a fraction of all of the living examples that I have experienced during my time here, I know that stays with me, and I hope some of my time with you will stay with you as well, and I know that it will only continue and grow, and this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning.
Hi, friends. I hope that our message inspired you today. I want to give you an opportunity to pay it forward. We are able to do all that we do here. We're able to get this message to you wherever you are in the world based on contributions. We're a nonprofit. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that, to pay it forward. You can click the link in the description box below or go to our website. No amount is too small or too big. We are so grateful. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Know that you are loved. Mwah. Have a good week.